Click, 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 click. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Death Scenes in Cemeteries. Um,
Oh,
I'm your host, Raymond Newsom. This is my co-host and sister from another, Mr. Renee Cody.
hello, guys.
Tonight we are continuing with the AtKid files, whereas she's been deep diving and I've been deep diving into my homework. Um,
My head hurts, but that's okay. And I haven't even gotten to the point of like when Wayne is like they're even looking at him. I haven't even gotten to that point yet. I'm getting there. I think it's coming up shortly, as the earlier documents are well organized. As we get, and so it should be, because it did turn into a massive, I want to say, shit show at some point, because we didn't have enough people, enough quote unquote boots on ground, um, enough resources of any kind. Um, so going through things, it's just then they started. I don't know if somebody accidentally started redacting victims that we knew of, and then realized they did that, and then they were fixing things and things that got scanned double or triple time, and like from the beginning. So it's a little of a cluster right now where I'm at. But I did find some interesting things that just make you go, hmm. So
I do like moments like that when,
yeah,
there's some questionable moments where like, all right, this this doesn't add up, but cool. We're going to take a
mm,
look at this instead. So
exactly. One
uh,
one common thing that I did find throughout, um, different FBI agents or different agencies that were involved, they all kept on saying all deaths are different, all deaths are different, all deaths are different. Um, Also, no sign of any serial essaying happening. But there's always, when they find these poor children, there's they find tons of forensics. They find physical things. They take all this stuff in and they process it, and it's like there's nothing um, of that would help them. But some things in there, I mean, some things that you makes you go, hmm. The Gator case, which I noticed was a pretty hefty file compared to a lot of the other ones. Um, they found magnetic recording tape. I noticed
magnetic recording tape.
recording tape. So that's tape that you would reel to reel. And we all know what Mr. Williams did as a side gig.
Yeah,
So like that was interesting. And they actually sent out that section of tape to get analyzed, and they actually got it to play, and it had some kind of pop music on it.
interesting.
Interesting that I thought that, because that automatically brought me back to his side group called Gemini.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which was a pop group.
That he was quote unquote managing and
Yep,
finding
new
kids
talent
to
for.
join. Yep. Um, Also, too, they what else that I kept on noticing is that they were pulling a lot of latent fingerprints and cross-referencing things from beginning cases, and up until to Luby Gator. A lot of the fingerprints matched.
Interesting.
Suspects were interesting, but suspects were interviewed. Some were followed. Some they just stop talking about, and they just say that that they've all been cleared for whatever reason. So I don't know if that's shoddy note taking on the agent part of it or what. I just found like, and I guess towards the middle, you know you've got tons of stuff going on. Yeah, tons of phone calls being recorded. people calling like the Library of Congress police department saying, "Hey, ha ha ha, do you miss me?" And there's a whole like the whole conversation is put into the file so you can read it. Saying that, oh, the next one is going to be soon, and he's going to be found in the river, and the next one was found in a river. So it kind of makes you think, okay, was this? And of course, the person, oh, it sounded like a young black male who called. You know, a lot of kids are being kidnapped, and for some reason, somehow, by the grace of God, being at that point, getting out of this car, or van, because that's what a lot of them are. It's a white van. There's a blue car. There's a green car involved. So there's, and they see license plates when they get out. And this one uh, young gentleman kept on saying, "I know this word," and you don't know what the word is because obviously it's redacted. Um, and it was a blue and white plate. It's blue and white. Well, I don't think Georgia was blue and white. So the only blue and white plate at that time, other than Connecticut, was Rhode Island. They dispatched resources to Rhode Island. It came up nothing. And then they were obsessed. I read like 35 pages. They were obsessed with this license plate. They're in Connecticut. They're in Colorado. They're in Minnesota. They're in Delaware, looking for this plate. I mean, I get it. They want to solve this and they want to stop it, but at some point, I don't know. You need to take a break and get more resources on the ground at that point.
I mean, also there was a chance that it was a stolen plate that they were just throwing on their vehicle while they did these things.
Yep.
Because the
Go ahead.
I said, which is very, very possible, or it could have just been one that they had made.
Mm-hmm. And they did find some plates. They did run a few of them, and one that sticks out. They found the people through the DMV system because back then it was way easier to do it. Now, I mean, we could go in and pay, $1 a page for hey, I need a 1970. I need to know where all the 1970 Novas are in Chattahooga or in Missouri, right? And you could
Yep.
walk into a DMV and they would give it to you with no questions asked, nothing. So they found this plate, they ran it, and the people are now in Los Angeles, in Las Vegas. They call them, and the woman goes, "Well, I returned those plates. So how did they get the plates?" But those were the plates that were used on a car that a kid found or somebody saw. So they're stealing plates, and
Yep.
or did they really return them, or they just threw them out. I
Either
mean,
one
like
is
that.
possible.
Exactly, anyone's possible. But that's a lot of it is that of finding, that they're tracking down people in another state. Um, you know, uh, like I said, there's a lot of evidence being found. One case that threw a little question into it is that they found like a blood-like substance in the heating vent of one of the apartments of Anthony Carter. Um, they never took any blood from Anthony Carter to run against if that was his or somebody else's. They never did that.
So there's
But
just a sample sitting there that nobody knows who it belongs to
and not only that, where possibly could it be now? Nobody
if
knows.
it hasn't been disposed of. It's just sitting in
Exactly.
storage.
Exactly. Like that was a an odd thing. But there's two cases in there. Anthony Carter is one that sticks out because I think they were really looking at mom and they just didn't want to cause an uproar with things because mom
Yeah.
wasn't the best mom. So, and they just kind of like one another one, they just kind of lumped him in because of happenstance. That there was a lot of them with a lot of Vicks that I found. Um, One that really, besides Gator, because they took a liking to Gator for some apparent reason. Other than the fact that a green Chevy Nova matches another, description of a kid that that got away. Um, so they hypnotized this child, which was in tandem with Latoya Wilson's case, which that's the one with the lip. That's like the two oddballs with the girl, and the Latoya Wilson case is even odder, um, because they heard witnesses heard loud commotions, the mother yelling and screaming, "Don't take my baby!" There's a lot of conflicting stories, um, but that after that case had happened, there was a attempted kidnapping. That kid went to the Atlanta PD and they brushed him off. They said no. They didn't believe him. But later on called him back and had him hypnotized to see what he knew. And then what he said was that it was a green Chevy Nova, and the witness for the Latoya Wilson said it was a green Chevy Nova.
Hmm.
You know, and he remembered the perp saying to him that he would kill him, and he threw his wallet. So he was taking, whoever was abducting these kids was taking their personal artifacts and making sure that they had it so they wouldn't be able to get what? ID'd.
Yep.
So that was interesting how, but that poor child, there was like 3 or 4 children that came up, and Alana just said it doesn't fit. You got, so basically saying, oh, because you got away, that you don't fit because you,
Oh, so
you
you
got away.
think you're alive? It's not the
Exactly.
same one.
You know, um, you know, at one point they subpoena for all the CMs. The in Atlanta, there's 117 child molesters in Atlanta at that time, um, and they narrow that down to 65.
I mean, it still had to be somebody right in the immediate area because they were
It
all
had to
out of
be,
the same area of Atlanta.
and there was finally in the files. There's finally some like um, description of who this person possibly could be. Um, Obviously, they're saying someone that is city oriented. Obviously, um, they said could be white or black because there's nothing, but he definitely was poor. You know, um, he, he 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 wasn't smart. He didn't finish high school. Possibly was um, a victim of child abuse. Was married, had 2 kids. Wife divorced him, took the kids. So this may have been the rage point
The
of where he
catalyst.
just the catalyst that he just goes okay and goes off. Um, I mean, there's that very generic workup. Um, and my favorite thing is all the psychics that start coming out of the woodwork, and they're entertaining them. They're entertaining them because I'm sure they're grabbing at straws at some
Any
point.
possible lead is still a possible lead, so you had to follow them out.
Exactly. So there's this, which I said made me think of Joni Templeton Skinner when this happened. Um, so a psychic contacted the Chicago PD, the FBI, the Chicago section of the FBI. Um, and she did an astrological chart regarding the murders, and that is all in there. That's actually a good read. That's interesting.
Astrological chart.
Yep, an astrological chart of all of the victims and cause of death and why and where placements are. I thought that was actually interesting. Also, too, back to those green fibers. There was more than just green fibers. There were violet, there were orange, there were yellow, there were red. Um, so there's, you know, but I think they started clumping them together when Charles Stevens, Terry Pugh, and Yusuf Bell all had the same green. So they started looking for not a pattern, but looking for same evidence, but not but not cause of death.
Uh, I I had to apologize because what I was laughing about. I decided to jump through one of the later files and stuff,
Yeah,
and the page that I found, it says, "Dear Director, I have a plan to catch the killer or killers of, you know, the missing children in Atlanta. My plan is to have the federal government agencies and local police agencies build a robot that resembles a child that can walk and talk similar to audio.
that's how crazy this shit got. I'm
Animated
glad you.
characters at Disney World put into the robot a TV camera and a sound recording device and a color dye for identification. This robot can then be monitored from a building or car or both with trained personnel."
You know that I mean that's a good one. One before that is a concerned citizen saying to the FBI, "Have you thought about getting all the families together and like interviewing them all together and asking how they all know each other and who they hang out with and who their associations are?"
I mean, that is a very fair point.
I mean, don't you think they? I don't. I mean, I don't know. They're doing the same thing that we are. They were back that. You know what I mean? It's.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hello. They go and they talk to those people. And it was like a comment of this will definitely help you solve your case. I think, concerned citizen. Um, it just
See if there's at least a map that gives me an idea as to. It's being
you know
slow.
there's another one that there's actually I should say there's actually like we talked about there's a few like the Aaron Weichel, right? He's the one that accidentally fell from a 27-foot bridge. Um, and he
Accidentally.
died of asphyxiation because of the fall.
Yeah. He fell in
Um,
it when it snapped.
exactly. Witnesses saw him with an unknown 30-year-old, 6 foot, 180 pound, with a male, obviously, with a mustache and a goatee. And he was entered. He was in a blue Chevy, which a blue Chevy, it keeps saying blue or green car. You know, um, his uncle a week later at a pharmacy saw the same car, went and told the police.
Nothing.
Nothing. And then somebody, I can't remember who after that, but since there was like a few days later, they found somebody else. Um,
However, especially, I'm just throwing this out as speculation is nothing but opinion.
mm-hmm.
They originally wanted to look into the Klan for this, right? And
Yes.
if the Klan was involved, there were members of, you know, police department and everything else that were Klan members, especially way up into the 90s. So
I mean,
if
and
they
that's certainly
know it is another member, they are going to dismiss that and ignore the evidence because they're not going
exactly,
to turn on one of their own.
exactly. And it's always known that there are high-ranking officials that show one thing and do another thing behind closed doors.
Yes.
In that time period of that, um, that's why they started at one point. That's when they started to look at the brothers and an offshoot of the clan. Um, I mean, one of the brothers. I can't remember his name. The one that they did bring him in, and they questioned him. Um, and he had a dog. He had the Alaskan Malamute, which is, no offense, kind of common with that group because that's kind of like German
They're
Shepherd.
working dogs. Yeah.
They're working dogs, and that's
Working
kind of,
class.
and they have them, a lot of them. Um, his brother had a very distinguishing mark on his face, scar, and one of the kids that had gotten away had said there he has, it looks like a scar, like a lightning bolt on his cheek. Brought him in for questioning. Can't tie him to nothing. Watched him and then
Let it go.
let it go. You
Oh,
know,
there's
um,
nothing going on here. These are
you
not
know,
the droids you're looking for.
exactly. And that's why a lot
Not
of
the child
that's the
robot
other
you
reason.
were looking for.
Except a robot. I still can't believe that. But hey, you know what? I mean, at least people are thinking. I guess I don't know.
We're
Um,
thinking out of the box on this one.
Real out of the box, like danger, Will Robinson, danger. Um, that was, that's like I said, that's one kid that, obviously we're looking at pattern, right? Patrick Rogers, he fell out of a tree and broke his neck, and that came from the coroner, but they lumped him into the cases because it fit. That's what we said. A lot of them, like their cause of death doesn't fit MO, but just because their age bracket and color of their skin and area, I mean, I guess.
At that point, they're grouping by looks and age compared to actual evidence.
Exactly.
Oh, look, he
And
fell out of a tree and broke his neck. It's not the same as the others, but we're going to toss him in there anyway.
exactly. Um, another two kids, Timothy Hill and Eddie Duncan. They were found in the same river, but like miles apart from each other. Timothy Hill was a runaway. He was doing things. He was a homosexual. He was doing homosexual behavior. Um, um, and then they think Eddie Duncan was a retaliation because what happened? Atlanta started to get like, we had parents forming, I guess, I don't know how you want to call it, a coalition to protect their children. Okay, so you had people roaming the streets with bats. You had that. You had Stop, which was Yusuf Mother's brainchild. You
Yeah.
had that. Then you had the mayor who's just like in the newspaper because they even put newspaper articles in there, which I thought was weird that the FBI would add that stuff, but not weird. Um, Saying because
I mean, it is
the
kind of reporting of what's going on within the city while this is happening.
Yeah. Um,
And let's see how far the train actually derails
I mean, and
from
it
the
was
tracks.
only the mayor's comments because the mayor did make some salty comments saying that they're not doing their job. So, I mean, it's the truth, but then again, like we said before, manpower, boots, everything else. I mean,
Yeah, especially when, first of all, the behavioral science unit was still very, very fresh, very, very new. And they were already good at doing the profile, but it was never a
mhm,
profile that anybody wanted to hear, so they didn't want to listen to them all.
exactly.
And they didn't want to put the time and effort into it, especially when they're like, hey, there's this other lead that needs to be looked into, and nobody would look.
Hmm.
So you can take and say that, yeah, they're not doing their job because we haven't found somebody to pin this on yet, but you're also not putting forth the effort to check all the ideas that they have, just the
Yep,
ones that fit what you want.
exactly. Because I mean, they had phone calls after phone calls. Somebody from Idaho calling in saying that they picked up a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker said that you know he asked about the Atlanta murders and if they'd known, and they said very little, and then he like divulged everything to this person. But then this person that had this information held it for 6 months before calling and saying, "Hey, you know, um, there was one hitchhiker. A woman picked him up in Florida, headed up to here, good old Connecticut, saying that he needed to get
Haha!
away from."
It was connected.
Exactly. That's it. It's the little Renee with big tails. Um, um, saying he just needed to get away. They followed, and then they did. They followed up on this person. I don't know how this woman had this information on this hitchhiker, but they found him. They interviewed him, and of course, he was under the influence when he made these, you know, comments. So I mean, like I said, they were boots to the ground with some things, but on some things they just like a license plate. Like they were infatuated with a license plate for like 35 pages that I read because it was blue and white. I'm like, yeah, well, Connecticut at that time was blue and white too. Just saying, people. Um, but Eddie Duncan, I did not know this. Um, he was a special needs kid, and they're saying of the they were because of the fundraiser that they were having, which was a planned operation from the FBI, as they wanted to see if anybody would work out of the woodwork. Um, they wanted to see if because they had figured if it was somebody local that he want or people. They did say that they said people would want to be around to see what people knew and what they didn't know, and see if they could just mingle within and not be seen. Um, I don't. They said that they think that Eddie Duncan's murder, because he obviously doesn't fit it. He's like they say he's in his 20s. He's a special needs kid. He has a speech impediment. Um,
Have it
but they
list.
just
I can hear it.
exactly. So because of the similar circumstances of his surrounding his death, he's lumped into these kids, which is a lot of them are because of the similar circumstances. Like they're found with, you know, clothes, no clothes, you know, all of them are either strangulation or asphyxiation, you know. But they've had a whole big thing um under this close class caption TV. during that event looking, and they think that that's what they said. They think that Eddie Duncan was just a if this person that was doing this, it was a revenge. I'm angry because I didn't get any notoriety because you were too busy talking to the mayor of Atlanta, and you were too busy talking to Sammy Davis Jr., and you were too enthralled with Muhammad Ali throwing some cash, more cash into the $100,000 pot that was there, and Sammy Davis Jr.'s concert was given for for resources either for the families or you know for the city for overpaid overtime or whatever. But I thought
Yeah.
that one was because I'm like, because they talk about each kid and none of them, like, oh, like this one's this and this has this. This is the first one where you see that he's a special needs. And somebody saw him in a blue car, talked to him, asked him if he was okay, and he said okay, like as if he knew who this guy was.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, 6 foot tall, African American, 180 pounds to 200, blah blah blah. That they come up with. If
Which
you
is
look at the sketches,
taller than Wayne.
you know,
Wayne is
uh,
not that tall.
exactly, Wayne is not that tall. And if you look at a lot of these people that saw these kids with somebody getting into a car, I mean, they're all like 5'9" to like 6 feet, and like, but if you look at some of the attempted abductions that they did sketches for, two of them, you put a mustache on Wayne, which we know he's done what before, dressed up as security officer and or police officer. Who's
Yeah.
to say you don't put a mustache on? One of them is a ringer for him with the hairstyle and everything. One of the
I
earlier
mean,
ones.
we've never denied that he was involved. We just
Oh, of course.
have suggested that he's not responsible for all of them, which
Yeah.
several of others have suggested as well.
Hmm.
And
You know,
do I think he should be out? Definitely not. But
no, oh, no.
you know,
Do I think maybe other people were involved with him? Yes, that maybe he knew about. I mean, his if you go towards down when they finally, are surveilling him and tailing him and questioning him. I mean, they're looking at his dad, and his dad's like, "Oh yeah, I rented this car on this day, and it's green, and I rented this day, and it's on it, it's blue, and and yes, the station wagon, the white station wagon that he was driving the night of they
yeah,
hear the splash, you know, um, dad's very detail oriented and kept a diary about things. I mean, I read that to that part because I said I needed a break from the cluster and went down a little bit to go look and see if I could, just get a rest my brain a minute. And then I was like, oh God, don't do this to me. But I mean, there's some towards the end when they're watching and they're getting a subpoena to be in the house next door so they can photograph him and all kinds of stuff. Dad's doing some weird stuff.
yeah. Um, One of the things that still catches me is the fact that he's the one that burnt the photographs.
Yep.
He wrote the photographs away and burnt them himself.
In the backyard.
Yeah,
When they're coming in with their search warrant and you know they're looking and an agent has photographs in his hands and he just has the balls to walk over to an FBI agent that's in your house with a search warrant because they believe your child is the Atlanta children killer. He just walks over nonchalantly, grabs those, and goes, "Oh, those have nothing to do with you." And they let him do it.
yeah. Oh, these are
That
my photographs.
his or mine. This means nothing. But then why did the next door neighbor see the night before dad and son burning them in the backyard, and they even found evidence of them burning them in the backyard when they were looking outside?
Yep. So
So
th- there's just so many questions and not really enough evidence behind any of them to take and get a solid answer.
exactly, you know,
And
it's
I'm aware that this is the case that put the BSU on the map.
mm-hmm,
And honestly, they've done pretty decent work since. But
mm-hmm.
I'm honestly going to call this a botched case. I really am.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I mean, I just and botched not on. I don't think a lack of effort from them. I think they were railroaded and things were put blocked in purpose because when they would, like some of the things like that, just sentences and opinions that they would put on their paperwork. Carpet fibers found on 7 of the Vicks. Okay, but and they had hair from a Siberian Husky or an Alaskan Malamute. But this quote: very little physical evidence has ever been recovered, which would lend to it being one perpetrator.
yeah,
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of he doesn't fit, but Alana's saying that he fits. But there's a lot of there's lack of evidence. We don't think this. So they're getting railroaded, which I get because at that point, like you said, I mean, even and
they
I mean, and
just want
granted,
it
yes,
over. So
they wanted over. They wanted to pin it on one person, seal shut case. They didn't care. Because they wanted that airport. They wanted to make Atlanta that mecca that it is, which is, I mean, it is, you know. And I just, it's a stain, and I think that as long as, I mean, like I said, the former mayor Keisha Bottoms, she opened a task force in 2019, and they've gone to work on it, and they found things and didn't get run for DNA, and they ran things, and they're mum. There's been nothing said about any of that DNA or what it was. You know, all they ever said is that they are looking at it, they're ripping it apart, they're putting up those boys on a board, and girls, and they're just like square one, and they have obviously the FBI redacted stuff, but they have the state stuff that's not redacted, so that they can say, okay, we'll just say Vic, like or say Perp, 6 feet, from 6 feet to 6'1", 200 pounds, mustache, and then they go and they look and they're like, oh, so this is the person that they're talking about, because in the state level they have a name and who they talk to. So they're that's what they're doing, is they're putting pieces together to say who they talk to, okay, and go, okay, let's look at these people further. But I think even if they did find something that was new and ground shaking, I don't think
they're not letting Williams out.
they're not gonna let him out. And I wouldn't want him out anyway. He creeps me out. I'm just gonna say that. I'm just gonna say, little man creeps me out, and I don't get creeped out by many people. Here, this is me, the one saying I would go with Ted Bundy if he pulled me over to the side of the road. You know what I mean? He and I don't know. I don't know if it's
There's something about him that is just off-putting.
mm,
And even listening to him talk, years later and stuff, just the way he would phrase things. He would go
Mm-hmm.
from talking in first person to third person, back to first person. And that's, let's face it, that's not normal, y'all.
No, no,
It really isn't.
it's not. No, it's not. I mean, Bundy's done it. I
Yeah,
mean, Manson has done it. All these guys have done it at one point juncture on
Gacy
video.
did it.
Gacy was a master of it because Gacy, I definitely say, had two personalities to begin with because that was Daddy. So I think there was genetics were involved with that
Yeah,
because Daddy was like that. You know, I mean, is it nice to know that yes, uh, Keisha Bottoms did she? You know, is there a memorial up there for those boys and girls? Yes, and I'm thankful for that because that means their names are still there. And are there, their parents? Some parents were even run out of Atlanta. I mean, Yusuf Bell's mother was run out of Atlanta because she was such a staunch advocate for all of those kids, any kid during that time period. Because how many kids weren't put on that list that were dismissed, going no, but ones were when they probably shouldn't,
yeah.
and how many are still missing?
A lot more than we want.
A lot more, exactly. You know, it's like I said, it is a black spot on them. And even if you came down to the brass tacks and you came out and you found out, okay, yes, we have two that are tied to him that he's convicted on. Okay, maybe one, Vic 1, 2, 3, 4, they find something that ties him to that. Okay, that's fine, but
It
I
wasn't
just
all
I've
of them.
exactly. It wasn't all of them, and there's just so much other things that happened in between, you know, things that came to light. Like I mentioned before, in 2014, the FBI, the Hoover Laboratory was put under scrutiny, and which at that time, a lot of cases that were done by DNA had to be relooked at or were tossed out because they had incompetence in the FBI. They had contamination of evidence. The lab was old. It was not secure, and it wasn't really ever meant to be a forensic lab.
No,
They said either at that time. I mean, if you have, you're looking at carpet fibers, bringing it to this case, which they did. They would pack up fibers and evidence and would schlep it up to DC, have them look at it, and then they would look at it and then bring it back to Atlanta on an airplane, which kind of boggles me. You'd send it that way, but um, so you can't have any cross contamination on that going on either. Nothing was secured. You know, they talked about a guy that worked in the lab during that time, and he goes, I'm looking at fibers or hair follicles or clothing or rope or whatever it is, and I would leave my stuff out, go to lunch. The air conditioning would come on or the heating would turn on. He'd come back, and it's like, what? And it's all this stuff that came from the ducks that just contaminated everything.
yeah,
You know, and I think in 2014 he was hoping and praying that he'd be able to get a new trial on it, just on that, and that didn't happen. So I don't know. There hasn't been really much talk other than that he was denied parole and he goes up for parole again in 11/27/2027, I believe. I know it's November of 2027. Um, I don't think, I don't know. I don't know if he's run the gamut with a appeals. I don't know. I don't know if he's done that and he's tapped out and he's just waiting to be paroled. Which that's kind of scares me that he's out too. If they'd ever let him, but they won't. And a lot of people have said to have said to me because they watch the show. Um, but Renee, it's a slam dunk case. Everything stopped after he got arrested and was put behind bars. My answer to that is, are you so sure about that? Just because of what was going on and just reading the cases.
And just because it might have quote unquote stopped in Atlanta doesn't mean it
Mhm.
stopped anywhere else.
Exactly. I mean, it you do have serial killers that, I mean, you could throw out H. Holmes. I mean, New Hampshire to Chicago to Philadelphia to Minnesota. There's now ties of him
Texas.
out in California, Texas. I mean, they do tend to travel.
And they even suspected him of going to London at one point too.
Exactly.
So, and I mean, Bundy himself started out in Washington, went all over the country.
hmm
First time he
I
was
mean,
caught, it was in Utah.
hmm
Second time he was caught was in Florida. It's that big hop, skip, and a jump.
big.
However, he
You
was
know.
caught before all of this happened. So
Yes. Yes. So there's no
there's
tying
no,
him to
yeah, there's
that.
no tying him to that.
No.
Um, and it doesn't really fit the MO of any known.
No.
But what's
That
crazy is still the fact that, many that were attributed to Williams, it wasn't the same method.
Nope.
And I keep bringing this back up. I keep bringing this back up on purpose. Because the two that he was, actually put in prison for, it was the
hmm
same method.
Yep. And wasn't he also spotted with like scratch markers, like defense wounds
Yeah.
on him from people? So just it's like if when you look at these kids, like Edward Hope Smith. He went missing July 21st, 79. He was 14 years old. Last known um, leaving the skating rink with his friends in the early hours by Eddie Eugene, who was the owner of the rink. He
Yeah.
was seen with his girlfriend at one point, and then he's found, you know, when a woman's, looking for discarded cans in a wooden area, and then like said, gunshot wound to the upper back with a 22, but the bullet was never
Sure.
recovered.
In fact, that one was considered unresolved.
Yep.
So that one
And they
definitely didn't fit.
oh no.
Two were never found. So obviously, those couldn't be tied to anything.
Yep.
There were
I mean,
quite a few that were just strictly strangulation compared to the asphyxiation of the two that were pinned completely on Williams, which is a very different method. I know it's basically still you can't breathe. but yeah, it's the manner in which it's done. Um, Multiple stab wounds. We know what that was. There were two of those that were just multiple stab wounds. That was a local group.
Mm-hmm.
Blunt force trauma to the head. That was attributed to Williams as well. Now, because timing again, it's very very rare for someone like that to take and switch MOs that much that often.
Exactly.
Even one that goes by a manner of what's opportunistic. And let's face it, if you know that you can't really beat them by strength and stuff, what works better than throwing it back over their head when they're not paying attention?
Exactly. Exactly. You know,
So it's
it.
and just hold it.
Yep. And just exactly. And
And that,
subduing them.
yeah.
It just.
Wow, this hour has really gone by fast. We are almost
Yeah, it is
52
now.
minutes in. um, Few shout outs. First promo video for Global Ghost Hunt went out today. The new website comes up very soon. The event is October 16th to the 26th. It is free to teams this year. So if you have a team and you want everyone to be able to see how you do your thing, which, I'm always willing to learn new tricks of the trade, how you guys investigate. It's always fascinating. Um, Sign up. You can go live. You can record, send it in unedited. And you don't need an opener or closer video. We will provide that for you. And the whole point is to highlight your team and what you do.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Show off the teams, show off the locations. That's the whole point of it. Um, Spirit Mechanics, we just had our local market over the weekend. That was a blast. We have a new topic coming up for Thursday. The following Thursday is Tarot Night. Catch the team. You can catch us here. You can catch us on Spirit Mechanics, and anywhere and everywhere else that I share them out, because there's usually a ton of places.
Same. Same.
um, Mr. Tyree should be coming up tomorrow night. I'm not sure what he's doing or if Miss Pat's going to be with him. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I haven't seen him announce that he's doing anything just yet, but I guess we'll wait and see. That is through the Missing Elements, which is the brick and mortar store that um, he helped set up with the mechanics. Mr. Tyree is a mechanic himself. He is a sound healer. He is phenomenal at what he does. Um, really works with chakras and this and that and stuff. Phenomenal work. You you can tell a difference when he's done. Um, Mr. Keith Allersberg should be starting here in the next few minutes. He will be on at 8 o'clock over at the Otterston. Give him a check out. Wednesday should be a new quick word with Steve from Spirit Mechanics and Energetic Forecast on Friday. We'll probably be getting together to record that Wednesday afternoon like we usually do, and then I'll get it all set up for everybody to be able to watch. And Scarefest is still rolling out the hits. please pay attention, y'all. It's getting interesting with the people that they're adding to this Scarefest. That happens
Yeah.
in October, which is the third weekend of October. It is that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's always a blast. Get to, get to Kentucky, y'all. Come check it out. Um,
Yeah, it's a good time. We were hoping and praying. Um, Most likely we won't. Kelly's surgery got bumped till July.
uh,
So
yeah.
yeah. So we'll be
Oh, that's a flight.
well, yeah, there's a flight, but then there's, the whole walking around and pushing a wheelchair, especially if it's going to be that insane around.
I mean,
I
that's the
mean,
great thing about a wheelchair. People clear out for wheelchairs.
that
Take
too, and that, and
advantage of
I
it.
mean that, and I'm sure if I said to, and then of course, I'm sure if I said to Steve and you guys and Tiff, go, I'm parking his broken ass right here, and you can babysit him, put him to
We'll
work.
put a big knee brace on him and stuff, and have his bald head going and stuff. And we'll put a sign around his neck that says "Get your picture taken with Goldberg." Um,
Hey, why not? Why not?
I love you, Kelly. I don't know if you're
Oh,
watching it or if you watch this later, but I love you, man.
he's in the other room. He's watching. I can hear him. So love you too. Gosh.
Come get your picture taken with Goldberg and his bum knee.
Exactly. And his bum name. Exactly. We can
If you
just
ask
prop him
nicely, he might let you sit on his lap like Santa Claus.
up.
What do
He
you want for
might.
Christmas, little kid? Um,
What? Which was funny because he actually did have to play Santa Claus once for Cub Scouts. That's kind of funny.
nice. Um,
With all that white that's showing up in his beard now, he almost does look like Saint Nick, just with no hair. But that's okay.
and don't forget that we are also on Global Ghost Hunt's Facebook page and on
Hmm.
Parapost Network Central. Um, because Brian told me I had to, basically. So,
Yeah, just yeah.
but
I've
greatly appreciate
wa-
it. We are shared out.
watch watching his shows or him being on. Yeah, you're gonna listen to Brian. Yeah, Brian says do, you do.
Uh, I don't want to hurt the little Canadian because then I'd have to get him some maple syrup candy. Um,
Well, see, we
I'm
can have
I'm
a
I'm
trade.
I'm,
We
I'm
can have
joking.
a trade. We can have a trade. He can send you your all dressed chips.
Yes. Well, I told him before he asked me if I want anything. I was like, "Yeah, all dressed chips. That's what I want." And I
I
never got
mean,
them. So the fact
Lay's
that I made
has the
fun of
all
him
dressed
at Bobby
stuff.
Mackey's that one time, he kind of had it coming because he didn't bring any all dressed chips with him. So
It's real easy. That's the way to Raymond's heart. All dressed chips.
one of the ways, the other one is bourbon. But
No. Well, we all know the bourbon part. If you don't, then hi, welcome to the party. But
hi, welcome to the party. Um, this is
oh,
honestly just our chance to wind down and stuff after such a serious conversation. So
mhm.
we take what we do seriously. We just don't take ourselves
Yes.
seriously. Um,
Oh, God, no.
and that's kind of why it's okay. Let's take a break. Let's have more announcements. For example,
Mm-hmm.
Scarefest TV will be on Friday night through the Scarefest Weekend Facebook page. They're going to announce more guests. Be ready for that. Um,
I mean, I don't know
that's
who. I mean, I don't, I've literally run out of ideas like on who.
I
You know what
mean,
I
we
mean? I'm
had
like,
our first Monster Squad announcement last Friday, so
which
that
that
was exciting.
I was like, oh yes, 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 yes. About some time for some Monster Squad. That was like an all time favorite. I
I
owned that
still watch that
VHS.
movie.
Oh God, yes. I owned that VHS. I wore the shit out of that thing because I loved that damn movie so much. I oh
And of course, don't forget the whole Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors
Dream Warrior.
reunion,
Oh, that's
and Nancy
all they
from the
need.
original Nightmare. So
All they need is now Dawkins to come there and sing like Dream Warriors.
that would be awesome.
I'm just putting it out there
And I
as
will
an
say
idea.
we're starting to get some of our regulars that always show up coming too. Bill Mosley's already been announced.
Of
Bill
course.
is a phenomenal person, so definitely if you get the chance, go meet him. There's several of them. They're just great souls. They really are. They play badasses on TV and movies, but they're really just awesome people. So
Sure, yes, they sure are.
I will say that I think we definitely made as much damage as we could tonight.
Hmm.
I won't forget the whole robot thing. That's definitely going to be one of my favorite
I
moments
just,
of the night because
oh,
that's just hilarious. Who doesn't
ugh.
love a good robot story in the middle of search for a serial killer?
Why not? I mean, why not, man? Why not? Just danger, Will Robertson. Danger, danger.
Stardate. This has become. I don't think we can
uh,
take much more, Captain.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Damage
Uh,
like
all right,
Jello.
beam him up,
Always.
Scotty. Um,
That's what Tanner said. Tanner said, Danger, damage is like Jello. There's always room for more." Agreed.
yeah, I don't think she could take much more, Captain.
Don't think so. Don't think so, Captain.
Damn it, Jim,
And
I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
exactly. And who the hell knows? As now I dip into what else I could find besides you finding the robot. Who knows? There's probably more gems in there. I mean, like I said,
I'm sure.
you guys, like I've said, there's phone call conversations of and psychics giving their take, and it's
I
there are
also
some
don't
information
understand the pages upon pages of pages. Oh, this person took this flight to get to Atlanta. Flight number, plane, everything. I'm like, how's that important to the case? How?
exactly
Why?
that's what they a lot of it. That's why I said they a lot of I know they in the beginning they had to follow every lead because that's what you're supposed to do until the lead becomes cold. But at some point, I mean, your training kicks in that you have from the FBI, and you just go, "That's just absurd."
At,
And when
at some point, common sense kicks in. You go, why am I fooling with this? This
hmm
this has nothing to do with anything. Um,
exactly, like the license plate chasing that went from Connecticut to Rhode Island to Maine, I mean to Florida, looking because it was blue with white letters or white with blue letters. Oh,
which honestly, if it was a rental vehicle, it could have been. But if it was a
hmm
rental, then it's not going to make
hmm
much difference.
exactly.
So
So,
that is definitely our show for the night. We have other things to do because we have a life. uh, but we love you all. Thank you for tuning in
yeah.
and spending the hour of listening to us ramble on about this crazy,
Mhm.
insane case that has just, completely captivated our neurodivergence. Um,
Yes,
it's going to be sad to see it end whenever we stop
yeah.
doing it next week. Because
I
next
know
week
that
will
is
probably be the last one, and then we'll switch to a new subject for a while. I can't remember what we said we were going to do next, but I'm sure it'll be
a
something fun.
certain well, a certain something
Oh yeah, March, March,
in
March,
March
March. Yes.
that's
Hi,
near and dear to
Sean. Thanks for catching us right before we
near
cut
and
off. Um,
yes.
But we will say that certain something as far as what the topic for March will be for March. So, you know, until next week, and we decide to come back with more chaos as far as AtKid 4 goes.
Oh, well, now we're going to be going into when they start surveilling him and watching him. I'm sure there's going to be some gems in that.
I'm sure there will. Thank you, Sean, for sharing out, sir.
Thank you.
Um, have a great night, everybody.
Careful of those robots.
Careful with those robots.